The third part of the concert had just begun when something completely off-script happened. "Stop, stop!" shouted a violinist from the front row, standing up in shock. The cameras turned. The audience rose from their seats. An entire aisle opened up as if torn by an invisible force. A boy about 10 years old, blind, walked toward the stage. He wasn't running. He wasn't calling for help. He only stretched out his hands, feeling through the air, as if the music was the only guide he recognized. "Security! Someone needs to stop him!" commanded Greg, the event manager, via radio. But when two security guards moved forward, André Rieu raised his bow in the air, a brief but powerful gesture. "Let him come." The audience immediately fell silent. The boy, breathing heavily, stumbled over the last step of the stage. André laid his Stradivari on the bench beside him and ran to him, grabbing him by the shoulders. "Boy, hey, everything's okay. What's your name?" The boy lifted his face toward the sound of the voice. His eyes, clouded by blindness, glistened with held-back tears. He took a deep breath. The audience of 3,000 people leaned forward as one body. "Are you my father?" The impact was brutal, as if someone had sucked the air out of the entire theater. André froze. The audience held its breath. The musicians looked at each other, not knowing what to do. "Boy, why would you—" Before André could finish his sentence, the boy collapsed in his arms. He lost consciousness. "Call the doctor now!" André shouted, holding the boy tightly and carrying him off the stage. The international broadcast quickly cut the feed. The most anticipated concert of the summer had just turned into the most mysterious, tense, and human moment in André Rieu's career, and no one, absolutely no one, understood what was happening, except the blind boy, who had walked through the entire theater to ask the question that would change everything. 4 hours before the concert, Constitution Hall seemed like another reality. Technicians ran between cables, lights were being tested, and the orchestra tuned instruments while tourists occupied every table at the cafes around the plaza. For André Rieu, it was just another summer evening. At least it should have been. In the dressing room, he was adjusting his jacket when his producer, Greg, rushed in. "André, the hall is packed. Not a single seat empty. Tonight's going to be something special." "Every night is something special, Greg. We just need to do what we always do." On the other side of town, in a small apartment in Philadelphia, Emma Carter was trying to get her son to eat something. "Just a little bit, sweetheart. It's a special day." "I'm nervous, Mom." "Are there many people?" "Yes, but no one will see you. They'll only hear you breathing with the music." He smiled. For Mason, who had seen nothing since birth, sounds were maps. People had tones, and music was the only thing that never hurt him. Sarah, Emma's friend, appeared at the door with the boy's backpack in her hand. "Are you sure about this? Going so far, with all that crowd?" "He's dreamed forever of hearing this orchestra live," Emma answered. "And there's no better day than today," Mason interrupted. "His music, it feels like it's calling me. I feel it here." He placed his hand on his chest. Emma briefly looked away. In her bag, hidden for years, was the letter, the last thing Mason's father had left before he disappeared. She had never opened it. She had never had the courage. "Mum." "Yes?" "If I had a father, what would he be like?" She swallowed. "Like someone kind, someone who listens." Hours later, when André took the stage and the first notes rang across the plaza, Mason stiffened. His fingers trembled. Something inside him just knew where he needed to go. And that decision, silent and desperate, would change the fate of all three forever. The concert had barely been going for 15 minutes when Mason noticed the sound wasn't just coming from the speakers. He felt the vibration directly through the ground, as if each note was a step calling his name. Emma held his hand tightly, but the boy slowly let go. "Mason, where are you going?" she whispered worriedly. I need to get closer. It's too far from here." "No, sweetheart. We're staying in the first row by the gate. That's enough already." But he shook his head, his clouded eyes focused on nothing. "It's not enough for me. I know where he is. I know where his sound is coming from." Before Emma could stop him, Mason moved forward. He walked between people with a precision that made no sense. A couple tried to stop him. "Boy, are you lost?" "No, sir. I'm finding my way." Security guards began moving closer. But the audience was so enchanted by the concert that not everyone noticed the small body moving through the rows. The melody was strong, vibrant, and every change of note seemed to push Mason forward. Behind him, Emma tried to push through the crowd. "Please, it's my son, let me through." No one fully understood, but someone finally made space. Mason reached the center aisle. The stage lights reflected in his clouded eyes. He reached out his hand into the emptiness. He felt the air vibrate, as if that was the exact direction. On stage, André briefly lifted his gaze. He didn't know why, but an uncomfortable feeling pulled through his chest. Something off rhythm, a strange energy in the audience. It was as if he had seen a movement that didn't belong to the performance. Peter, backstage, noticed the same thing. "Dad, there's a child coming this way. Security is already on their way. Let him." He didn't even think about it. The sentence came automatically. The concert continued, but the musicians began looking at each other. It was impossible to ignore the boy. Mason climbed the first step of the stage and stopped. The sound was so clear, he almost felt the bow touching his own skin. "Mr. Rieu," he called softly, not knowing if he was close enough. André's microphone picked it up. The audience murmured. Cameras moved quickly. Greg cursed softly into the radio. "Someone needs to get that boy out of here now." But André raised his hand in silence. The music stopped immediately. "Hey, little one, come here. Everything's okay." His voice was soft but firm, a sound Mason recognized as shelter. The boy took 2 more steps, feeling through the air until he found the fabric of André's jacket. "Did you find your way all by yourself?" The sound brought me. The audience became completely silent. No one breathed. No one knew if this was an accident, a desperate act, or something bigger. Emma finally appeared at the side of the stage, tears streaming. "Mason, oh my God, come here." But the boy didn't turn around. He lifted his face precisely toward the maestro's voice, as if he had practiced this sentence for years. "Are you my father?" The question cut through the plaza, not as an accusation, not as a search for genetic truth. It was a cry for help. André felt the ground disappear beneath his feet. For a second, the maestro didn't see the stage, nor the audience, nor the cameras, only the trembling boy before him. "Little one," he choked, "why would you ask me that?" Mason took a deep breath. His voice came broken. "Because no one answers when I call." And then his body gave way. André caught him before he fell. Emma ran, sobbing, but he was already unconscious in the maestro's arms. The music stopped. The audience panicked, and that evening's concert stopped being a performance. It turned into the first piece of a mystery no one was prepared for. Greg came running from the sideline, his face twisted with stress. "André, we need to get him to the medical team, now." "Call them here," André said, holding Mason tightly. "I'm not going to let him go." Emma finally reached the stage, her hands trembling. "Please, I'm so sorry, I don't know what happened." "It's okay," André said gently. "We'll take care of him first." A doctor rushed forward with a medical bag. Dr. Reynolds knelt beside Mason, checking his pulse and breathing. "His heartbeat is stable. It looks like exhaustion, emotionally overwhelmed." André looked at Emma. "Was he born blind?" "Yes," she whispered, "since birth." "And he walked all the way here, alone?" He follows sound," Emma said, tears still streaming. "It's the only way he understands the world." Dr. Reynolds looked up. "We need to bring him to a quiet room. Let him come to, without stress." André nodded. "Bring him to my dressing room, I'll be right there." He looked at the audience, still standing in shocked silence. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said into the microphone, his voice shaky but determined, "we need to take a brief pause. But we'll be back. Thank you for your patience." The crowd began slowly applauding, not for the concert but for the humanity they had just witnessed. Backstage, André carried Mason to the dressing room, Emma following close behind. "What's his name?" André asked as they walked. "Mason," Emma said softly. "He's 10 years old." "And his father?" Emma hesitated. "He's not around. Hasn't been for years." André looked at the boy in his arms, his face peaceful now, as if he had finally found rest. "That's why he asked that," André murmured more to himself than to Emma. "What?" "He didn't ask because he thought I really was. He asked because he wanted someone to finally stay." Emma's heart broke again. In the dressing room, André carefully laid Mason on the couch. Dr. Reynolds came in with her equipment. I'm going to check his vital signs, but I think it's mainly emotional. Emma knelt beside her son, his small hand in hers. Mason, sweetheart, please wake up. His eyelids trembled. Peter looked through the doorway. Dad, the media is asking what happened. They want a statement. Tell them we don't know anything yet, André answered, without taking his eyes off Mason. But it was broadcast live. It's already going viral. André turned around, his face stern. Peter, this is a child, not a news item. Keep them out. Peter nodded and left. Mason began to wake up. His eyes opened slowly, confused. Where am I? You're safe, Emma said quickly. You're with Mom. And the man with the music? I'm here, André said, kneeling beside him. Mason automatically reached toward his voice, his hand feeling until he found André's sleeve. I'm sorry. I ruined everything, didn't I? No, boy. You didn't ruin anything. But I called you father. André's throat tightened. Why did you do that, Mason? The boy swallowed. Because my father is never there, and your voice sounded like someone who would stay. It was at that moment that Emma broke. She put her head in her hands and sobbed. André gently placed his hand on her shoulder. Mom, how long has his father been gone? Emma looked up, her face wet with tears. 8 years. Since before Mason was born. And he never tried to contact you? No. Only a letter. André frowned. A letter? Emma reached into her bag and pulled out an old yellowed envelope. It was sealed, never opened. I've never read it. I was too afraid. The medical team had stabilized Mason's condition. Dr. Reynolds gave Emma some instructions for the coming hours. Rest, water, no stress. But in the dressing room hung a heavier tension than any medical care could relieve. André stared at the letter in Emma's hand. 8 years and you've never opened it. No, she whispered. I couldn't. Why not? Emma's hands trembled as she held the envelope as if it were a time bomb. Because I'm afraid of what's in it. Afraid that he'll say he never loved us, or that Mason was a mistake. Mason, still weak but listening, turned his head toward his mother. Mum, are they talking about Dad? Emma looked at André, then at her son. Yes, sweetheart. About the letter he left behind. What does it say? I don't know. I've never read it. Mason frowned, confused. Why not? It was a simple question, but it cut through all the defense mechanisms Emma had built up. Because I was afraid, Mason. Of what? Of the truth. André pulled a chair closer to Emma. Ma'am, may I say something? She nodded. Sometimes the truth is painful, but it's always better than the story we make up in our heads. Because that story, that's usually worse than reality. Emma looked at the letter, then at Mason. You think so? I know so, André said. I've seen it in my own family. Silences that lasted for years because no one had the courage to speak. At that moment, the door opened. Greg came in, his face tense. André, I have headquarters on the line. They want to know when the concert will resume. Tell them it waits. But the sponsors... Greg. André's voice was cold. This child is more important than sponsors. Greg looked at Mason, then at Emma and sighed. Okay, I'll tell them we'll give a statement tomorrow. He left. André turned back to Emma. Listen, you don't have to do this alone. If you want to open that letter, do it with us here. Why would you do that? Emma asked, overwhelmed. You don't even know us. Because your son came to me and called me father. That means something, and I take that seriously. Mason reached for André's hand. Does that mean you'll stay with us? André's heart broke a little. For tonight, yes, I'll stay. Emma took a deep breath. Okay, I'll open it. Her fingers trembled so badly she could barely hold the envelope. André placed his hand over hers, stabilizing. Easy. Take your time. Emma slowly tore the seal. The paper was old, brittle. She pulled out a single letter, handwritten in hasty script. Do you want me to read it? André offered. No, Emma said softly. I have to do this. She unfolded the letter. Her eyes scanned the first lines and immediately they filled with tears. What does it say? Mason asked anxiously. Emma swallowed. Emma, if you're reading this, it means I didn't have the courage to stay. I wasn't the man you deserved. I wasn't the father Mason needed. I failed before I even tried. Mason's mouth opened slightly. He talks about me? Yes, sweetheart. He does. Emma continued, her voice breaking with each word. I heard about his condition when you were still pregnant. The doctor said there were chances he would never be able to see. And I panicked. I wasn't afraid of having a blind son. I was afraid of being responsible for someone so special, so vulnerable. I didn't think I was capable. André felt a lump in his throat. When I told my father, he called me a coward. He said I would never be man enough to take on anything. Emma paused, her breath catching. And maybe he was right, because the next day I ran away. I left like an idiot. Not because I didn't love you, but because I believed you'd be better off without me. The silence in the room was deafening. Mason frowned. He thought I was difficult? That I was a burden? Emma grabbed his face with both hands. No, he thought he was too small to take care of you. That's different. But the boy didn't seem convinced. Why didn't he ever come back? Emma went back to the letter. Once a year I came back to the door of the building to try to go upstairs and knock, but I always gave up. I saw you through the window. You were rocking Mason, singing to him, and I thought you were better off without me. I was too weak. Tears began flowing down Emma's face. But if this letter ever reaches your hands, I want you to know, I regretted it every day. You were the most real thing I had, and if Mason grows up hearing music, know that's my fault too. I listened to André Rieu every night while thinking of you. André stiffened for a moment. Mason gripped his hand. The sound of the violin was the only thing that reminded me that love still existed. The letter ended there. No signature. No explanation of what happened to the father afterward. Only silence. Emma slowly folded the paper, like someone closing a wound. So he left, because he was afraid? Mason asked, wiping his face. Yes, sweetheart, because he was afraid. Not of you, of his own failure. Mason lowered his head. But I would have grown up with him anyway, even if he was bad at everything. André knelt before the boy, his voice low but firm. Mason, listen to what I'm going to tell you now. Sometimes adults fail not because they don't love, but because they don't know how to love well, and that hurts on all sides. Did he love me? Emma opened a sad smile, full of pain and relief. Yes, he loved you so much he collapsed. That doesn't help you, but it's true. The boy breathed deeply, trying to absorb the answer. His heart felt heavy. And what do we do now? He asked, turning to André as if looking for direction. The maestro looked at them both, at the letter, at the chaos the evening had become. Now? He stood slowly. Now we find the end of this story. Together. Emma frowned. What do you mean? André walked to the dressing room door and opened it just a few inches. The plaza was still waiting. The musicians were already positioned. But that wasn't all. A tall man with a weary face stood by the equipment, as if he had been drawn by the words that had just been read. André pointed with his chin. I mean that I think he wasn't the only one keeping secrets. And Emma, when she saw the man, dropped the envelope on the floor. Her face turned white. That's James. Who's James? André asked. Emma's voice trembled. Michael's brother, Mason's father's brother. André's eyes widened. And what's he doing here? Before anyone could answer, James opened the door all the way. His eyes were red. His hands trembled. Emma, I need to talk to you. Mason turned his head toward the new voice. Who are you? James swallowed. I'm your uncle. The room froze. My uncle? Mason repeated, confused. Yes, your father's brother. Emma stood up, anger and fear mixing on her face. Where were you all these years, James? Where were you when I needed you, when Mason needed you? James stepped inside, his head bowed. I was afraid, just like Michael. Afraid of what? Of the truth. André stepped between them, his voice calm but authoritative. What truth? James looked at Mason, then at Emma, his face full of regret. The truth about where Michael is, and why he never came back. Emma stiffened, her breath caught. Where he is? What do you mean? James closed the door behind him, as if he wanted to keep the weight of what he was going to say inside. Michael, he's not here anymore. The words fell like stones. Mason gripped André's hand tighter. What does that mean? Where is he then? James knelt before the boy, his voice broken. He's not with us anymore, Mason. He passed away 2 years ago. The room became ice cold. Emma's legs almost gave way. André caught her by the elbow. How? She whispered. An accident, James said, his voice barely audible. He was working at a construction site. There was a fall. He didn't survive. Emma let herself fall onto the couch, her hands over her face. 2 years ago and no one told me? He didn't want it, James said, tears in his eyes. He had left instructions. No one was supposed to bother you. He said you needed to move on without him. But I had the right to know, Emma screamed, her voice breaking. I know, James sobbed, and I've regretted it every day. But I respected his wish, like I always did. Mason turned his face toward his mother. Mom, does this mean Dad is never coming back? Emma couldn't answer. She could only cry. André, overwhelmed by the tension, sat beside Mason. Mason, your father... He made a mistake, many mistakes. But the most important thing you need to know is that he loved you. That's in the letter. But he's not here, Mason said, his voice small. And now, he'll never be here. James wiped his face. Mason, can I give you something? The boy nodded hesitantly. James reached into his pocket and pulled out a small wooden object. It was a whistle, simple, worn. He made this for you. When you were still a baby. Mason reached for it, his fingers exploring the smooth wood. What is it? A whistle. He blew on it every time you cried. You always stopped immediately. He said it was the only thing he could do right as a father. Mason held the whistle against his chest, his eyes full of tears. He made this for me. Yes. And he wanted you to have it. Someday when I had the courage. André felt his own eyes prickle. Emma looked at her son, at the whistle, at James. Why are you here tonight? James took a deep breath. Because I was in the audience. I saw Mason walk onto the stage. I heard him ask, "Are you my father?" And at that moment, I realized I couldn't run away anymore. So you came to tell us the truth, André said softly. Yes, and to say something else. What? James looked Emma straight in the eye. That Michael, before he passed, made me promise to do something. What? That I would take care of you. That I would be the brother he never was. The Uncle Mason deserved. Emma shook her head, overwhelmed. James, I don't know. I'm not asking for forgiveness, James interrupted. I'm only asking for a chance to make it right. Mason lifted his face. Are you really my uncle? Yes, Mason, I am. And are you going to leave too? James's heart broke. No, never again, I promise. The boy reached across and found James's hand. Okay, then I believe you. Emma looked at André, helpless. I don't know what to do. André stood up. You don't have to decide anything now. But tonight we all heard the truth, and that's a beginning. At that moment, Peter knocked on the door. Dad, the media knows about the boy. They want an interview. No, André said immediately. No interviews. This is private. But they're being aggressive. They're saying the public has a right to answers. André walked to the door and opened it partially. Peter, tell the media that if they publish even one word about this family without permission, I'll personally make sure they never attend another concert of mine. Peter's eyes widened. Okay, Dad. I'll take care of it. He left quickly. André turned back to the room. Listen, you've been through a lot tonight. Too much. But there's one thing I know. What? Emma asked. That music brought you here, and music can also move you forward. What do you mean? James asked. André looked at Mason. Mason, would you like to listen to the end of the concert? Not in the audience, here backstage, where it's safe. Mason's face lit up. Really? Really? And if you want, I can play a special song for you. The boy nodded enthusiastically. Yes, please. Emma looked at André, overwhelmed by his kindness. Why are you doing all this for us? André smiled gently. Because tonight, when Mason called me father, he reminded me why I make music. Not for the shows, not for the fame, but to touch people, to let them feel they're not alone. He walked to the door. Stay here. I'll come back after the concert, and then we'll talk about what comes next. When André took the stage again, the audience exploded in applause, but he raised his hand for silence. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience. Tonight I experienced something I'll never forget. And I want to dedicate the next song to a very brave boy who taught me what it means to never give up on those you love. The first chords filled the plaza. Backstage, Mason listened to every note as if the whole world had become sound. He held the whistle, Emma held his hand, and James, standing behind them, cried without trying to hide it. When the music ended, Mason said softly, "Mom, I think I found 2 things today." "2?" she asked, smiling. "Yes, the sound of my father, and the place where we move forward, even without him." Emma pressed her forehead against his. "Then we start today, sweetheart, again." And for the first time in many years, Emma truly believed her own words. When the concert ended and the audience slowly left Constitution Hall, André, Emma, Mason and James remained in the dressing room. There hung a strange calm, not of resolution but of acceptance. The truth had finally been spoken. André came in, still in his performance clothes, his face tired but peaceful. "How are you all doing?" Mason turned his head toward the voice. "I feel strange, but not bad." "Strange how?" André asked, sitting beside him. "Like I put down something heavy, but I don't know what I should carry now." André nodded slowly. "I know that feeling. It comes because you've asked questions for years without answers, and now that you have the answers, you don't know exactly what to do with them." "Exactly," Mason whispered. Emma looked at James, who stood quietly in the corner. "James, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Why did you stay away? All those years?" James rubbed his face. "Because Michael asked me to. He said it would be easier for you if no one from the family interfered. He didn't want you to have memories of him. He wanted you to forget him. But we couldn't," Emma said softly. "Especially not Mason. I know that now, and I should have come sooner." André stood up. "Listen, all of you, I'm not a therapist, I'm not a family counselor, but I know one thing for sure. Tonight is only the beginning, not the end." "What do you mean?" Emma asked. "I mean that Mason now knows the truth, but he still needs a future, a reason to look forward." Mason nodded. "Like what?" André smiled. "Like music. Do you love music, Mason? More than anything else. Would you like to learn it? Violin, maybe?" Mason's eyes widened. "Really? Really? I know a school here in Philadelphia. They have a special program for children like you, blind children learning to make music." Emma's heart leaped. "Mr. Rieu, that's too much." "No," André said firmly. "It's exactly enough, because tonight Mason taught me something, and now I want to give him something back." James stepped forward. "I can help. I can take him to lessons. I can be there." Emma looked at James, then at Mason, then at André. You really mean this?" "Yes," they both said at once. Mason smiled, a real wide smile. "Mom, can I learn?" Emma knelt before her son. "Yes, sweetheart. Yes." André took out his phone. "I'll call the school tomorrow. We'll arrange everything." At that moment the door opened. It was Greg, with a strange expression on his face. "André, there's someone who wants to see you." "Who?" "A journalist. She says she wants to tell tonight's story, but the right way." André frowned. "I said no interviews. This is different. Her name is Rachel Foster. She does human interest stories, no sensationalism." André looked at Emma. "What do you think?" Emma hesitated. "If it can help Mason, other children who feel alone, then maybe." André nodded. "Okay, let her in, but only if Emma approves." Rachel Foster came in, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a notepad. "Thank you for seeing me. I just want to understand what happened tonight, not for sensationalism, but because I think people need to hear this story." André looked at Mason. "Mason, may this lady tell your story," Mason thought. "Only if she tells the truth, not the scary parts, the beautiful parts." Rachel smiled. "I promise." She sat down and began carefully asking questions. Emma told about the letter. James told about Michael. Mason told about how he found the stage through sound. And André told how a simple question, "Are you my father?" touched his heart in a way he never expected. When the interview ended, Rachel stood up. Thank you all. This story, it will touch people, I know it. After she left, the four of them sat together again. André looked at his watch. It's late. You need to rest. Where do we go? Emma asked. My team has arranged a hotel. Everything is paid for. You'll stay tonight as my guests. Mr. Rieu? André? Call me André. Emma smiled through her tears. André, why are you doing all this? He looked at Mason, who was still holding the whistle. Because some people come into your life at exactly the right time, and tonight, Mason was that person for me. Later that evening, at the hotel, Mason lay in bed while Emma sat beside him. Mom? Yes? Do you think Dad would be proud of me? Emma's throat tightened. I'm sure of it, sweetheart. Even though I never met him. Especially because of that. Because you're so brave. Because you went to that stage not knowing what would happen. That's courage. Mason smiled. And André? Do you think he could be a little bit like a father? Emma stroked his hair. I think he's someone who cares about you, and sometimes that's enough. In his own hotel room, André sat by the window, looking at the lights of Philadelphia. Peter knocked. Dad, the story is already online. It's going viral. What are they saying? That it's the most beautiful moment of your career. That you're a hero. André shook his head. I'm not a hero, I just did what was human. Maybe that's exactly why it's so special. André smiled. Maybe. The next morning, James came to the hotel. He had brought coffee and pastries. I thought, maybe we could have breakfast together. Emma nodded. Yes, that would be nice. As they ate, James talked about his life, about how he had lived alone for years, about how he missed Michael, about how he regretted all the lost time. I want to make it right, he said finally. Not because I can replace Michael, but because I'm family, and family stays. Mason reached across the table and found James's hand. I'm glad you're here. James's eyes filled with tears. Thank you, Mason. Later that day, André stopped by. I spoke with the school. They can start Mason next week. Mason jumped up. Really? Really? And I have something for you. He handed Mason a case. What is it? Open it. Mason carefully opened the case. Inside was a small violin, perfect for his size. Is this for me? Yes, every musician needs their own instrument. Mason hugged André so tightly, the maestro almost fell backward. Thank you. Thank you so much. André smiled, his own eyes moist. You're welcome, boy. And at that moment, in that small hotel room, a new chapter began, not without pain, not without questions, but with hope. The weeks after that night at Constitution Hall changed everything for Mason and Emma. The days felt lighter, as if a burden they had carried for years had finally been laid down, not forgotten but accepted. Mason began his lessons at the music school André had recommended. The teacher, an old friend of André named Harold, had taught blind children for decades. He understood that music for them wasn't just art, it was a language, a way to understand the world. Mason has a natural feel, Harold told Emma after the first week. He hears details other children miss. The vibration of a string, the silence between notes. He's special. Emma smiled, her heart full of pride. He's always been special. I just wanted him to believe it himself. James came by every day, sometimes to take Mason to school, sometimes just to be together. He told stories about Michael, not the sad stories, but the beautiful ones, about how Michael loved music as a child too, about how he could laugh until tears over nothing, about how he always tried to do the right thing even when he failed. He wasn't a bad man, James said one evening as they sat on the balcony. He was just lost. I know, Emma answered softly, and I've forgiven him. Not for him, for myself. Mason practiced every evening on his violin. At first it was just sounds, squeaks and scratches that barely seemed like music. But slowly, week by week, the notes began to take shape. One evening, after 2 months of practice, Mason played something recognizable. It was a simple melody, a lullaby Emma always sang to him when he was little. She stood in the doorway, listening, tears quietly streaming down her cheeks. When he finished, Mason put down his violin. Was it good, Mom? She walked to him and hugged him tightly. It was perfect, sweetheart. Perfect. André kept in touch. Not every day, but regularly. He sent messages, called to ask how lessons were going, and even sent new sheet music for Mason to try. One day he invited them to a small private concert in his studio. I want Mason to see, or rather, feel, how a real recording works. In the studio, Mason listened fascinated to every sound, the way the microphones captured every breath, the way the music moved through the space like a living being. "It's overwhelming," he whispered. "Yes," André said. "That's how it should be. Music should touch you, not just your ears, but your whole body." After the recording, they sat together in the control room. "Mason," André said, "I want to ask you something." "What?" "Would you someday like to play with me? On a real stage?" Mason's mouth fell open. "Really? But I'm not good enough yet. You're good enough to try, and that's all that matters." Emma looked at André, her eyes full of gratitude. "You've changed our lives, you know that?" André shook his head. "No. You changed your own lives. I just opened the door." Months passed. Mason grew, not just in his music, but in confidence. He made friends at school. He laughed more. He dreamed about the future instead of being stuck in the past. One evening he sat on his bed, his father's whistle in his hands. "Mom?" "Yes?" "I think I understand Dad now." "What do you mean?" "He didn't leave because he didn't love me. He left because he loved me, but didn't know how to show it." Emma sat beside him. "That's a very mature way to look at it. Harold said that music teaches you to listen, not just to notes, but to people. And I listened to everything James told about Dad, and now I understand." Emma hugged him. "You're a special boy, Mason." "No, Mom. I'm just myself." A year after that night at Constitution Hall, André organized a special concert. A small, intimate event in the same space where everything had begun. He invited Mason to play with him. "Just one song," André said. "Together, you and me." Mason was nervous but excited. "Which song?" "Amazing Grace, because it's about grace, and that's what you taught me." On the evening of the concert, Mason stood backstage, his violin in his hands. Emma and James stood beside him. "Are you ready?" James asked. "I think so," Mason said, his voice trembling. "You don't have to be perfect," Emma said. "You just have to be yourself." When André called his name, Mason walked onto the stage. The audience applauded softly, respectfully. André led him to the center. "Ready?" Mason nodded. They began to play. It wasn't perfect. Mason missed some notes. His hands trembled at the difficult passages, but it was real, it was honest, and it touched everyone in the hall. When the song ended, the audience stood up, not with loud cheering, but with quiet, respectful appreciation. Mason smiled, tears on his face. André knelt beside him. "You did amazing." "Really? Really?" Backstage, Emma hugged her son so tightly he could barely breathe. "I'm so proud of you." James wiped his own tears. "Your father would have been proud too." Mason held the whistle, his fingers stroking it. "I know. I feel it." Later that evening, when everyone had gone home, André and Mason sat together on the empty stage. "Mason, can I tell you something?" "Of course. That night when you called me father, I was confused, even a little scared, because I didn't know how to respond." "And now?" André smiled. "Now I understand. You weren't looking for a father in me. You were looking for someone who would stay, someone who wouldn't run away. And you stayed." "Yes, and I'm glad I did." Mason reached for André's hand. "Thank you. For everything." André squeezed his hand gently. "No, Mason. Thank you. You taught me that music isn't just for concerts. It's for moments like this. For people like you." They sat in silence, the empty hall around them, but it didn't feel empty. It felt full, full of hope, full of connection, full of love. When Emma and James came back to pick up Mason, André stood up. "I'll see you next month?" "Absolutely," Emma said. "And Mason, keep practicing. You have talent. Real talent." Mason smiled broadly. "I promise." As they left the theater, Mason looked back. "Mom?" "Yes? I think this is it." "What is it?" "The sound of home. Not a place, but a feeling. A feeling that people care about you, that you're not alone." Emma's heart swelled. "Yes, sweetheart, that's exactly what it is." And as they walked through the streets of Philadelphia, hand in hand, it felt like the music, that beautiful, healing music, would keep leading them all the way home, because music was never just notes. It was a bridge, a connection, a promise that even in the darkest nights, there would always be sound, always hope, always love. And for Mason, who had lived his whole life in darkness, that was the most beautiful light of all.